A company man's trial for strike-related violence. The defendant, longtime New Beckley employee Doug Epling, charged with brandishing a high-powered rifle March 15, 1989, just 3 months into the strike. The state called 4 witnesses, all of them testifying to the same thing, that on the night of March 15, 1989, company employee Doug Epling walked out onto the office's porch and pointed a high-powered rifle at picketers nearby.
And when you say he was looking through the scope, can you show the magistrate in what position you saw the defendant with his rifle?
He was looking down to it. He had it up to his shoulders like this, looking like that on the scope.
After that tell-all testimony, the defense rested its case without even calling a single witness.
Ladies and gentlemen, I find Mr. Epling guilty of brandishing a weapon. I find Mr. Epling $1,000 plus court cost and no jail term. This court is adjourned.
Finally, Union Mine Workers got justice in court.
Epling is planning to appeal. In Raleigh County, Loretta Budd, News Center 6.
And the company may be headed back to the courts, this time to face contempt charges. Yesterday, New Beckley officials didn't show up for court-ordered negotiations. The union says it's considering not only taking New Beckley to court, but making them pay expenses for the UMW officials who did show up for bargaining.
Well, as I understand it, the lawyers will be going to the NLRB for contempt charges against the company for not showing up at the negotiations.
Carter says his local union still wants to negotiate a contract, but this time will ask a judge for a definite time and place for those talks. A federal judge says he'll decide next week whether to slap an injunction on Rum Creek coal picketers. The National Labor Relations Board has asked Judge Dennis Knapp to limit the number of protesters at the site after months of violence and vandalism. The union's arguing against the injunction, but admits one will probably be issued. Rum Creek Coal is also embroiled in a lawsuit against the state, claiming West Virginia state troopers haven't done enough to keep the peace at the non-union Logan County operation. Meanwhile, Mountain State troopers staged their own protest tonight for more money. About 125 state police planned to hold a candlelight vigil on the steps of the Capitol tonight, but were forced inside because of the weather. The troopers are asking Governor Caperton and the legislature for better paychecks and have even hired a public relations firm to handle their campaign drive. The officers and their families tonight also marched to the governor's mansion to present a petition from citizens supporting their cause.
The Secretary-Treasurer says copies of a tentative agreement with the Pittston Coal Group may go to the printers this week. But the official says before there's a vote, the union must take care of its legal problems.
The language is not quite finalized, but immediately upon finalizing the language, we anticipate the printing will go ahead. So as when the other issues are out of the way, there'll be no delay. We can come down here, regardless whether it's on a Saturday or Sunday or as quick as possible, and explain it to the membership.
John Benevik was in Southwest Virginia hosting the president of the Swedish Miners Union.
42-year-old John McCoy of Premier is dead. 2 others, Daryl and Steve Morgan, are hospitalized, all 3 believed to be union picketers. Tensions have been running high at the mine for months, ever since it became a non-union operation. News Center 6's Betsy Thompson has more.
The vehicles possibly parked on that road when they were shot.
By mid-afternoon, police were still combing the hillside just below the mine, gathering evidence. This bullet was recovered from a tree atop the hill, where police believe 1 or more gunmen were stationed.
From what we can find out, there was apparently some subjects that were located up on the hill who fired on some vehicles located on the main road. There was exchange of gunfire between the 2 separate parties.
Earlier, police recovered a small arsenal of weapons from non-union workers, more than a dozen handguns and rifles. Police are still trying to piece together what happened. What they do know is that shots were exchanged between union and non-union workers. What they don't know is who fired the first shot.
The mines up here are non-union. The pickets are from the union, and as to who was where at this time, I'm not really sure.
But union mine workers we talked to are sure of at least one thing. A union brother is dead and 2 others wounded.
Looks as a massacre to me. They were ambushed from behind. The scabs come up behind them. Ambushed them. It's cold-blooded murder. That's all in the hell it is. Cold-blooded murder.
Miners and violence are nothing new to the coal fields, but even long-time miners, veterans of all types of labor disputes over the years, tell us they have never witnessed the kind of violence that took place up this road here today.
Yeah, I've been involved in some pretty heated situations, but never where there was a killing. I've never been involved in that. I've never seen anything as cold-blooded as this in my entire life.
It looks like they figured it's easier to kill us than to pay us.
That's
News Center 6.
an ironic footnote to all of this. Union workers say the incident happened just about an hour before they were to meet with mine operators to resolve the very issues that led to the violence. At this time, police say they have no suspects and no arrests have been made.
But also today, Sherry, a much more peaceful picture in the Southwest Virginia coal fields, hosting a group of Soviet miners. The 9 men, along with interpreters and UMW escorts, made a whirlwind tour of the Pittston picket lines. They met with the American miners in the name of brotherhood and solidarity. News Center 6's Tracy Kingsley has the story.
For the Soviet miners who walked out in a bitter strike over better working conditions last summer, it was a chance to listen and learn about what their American counterparts have been through.
I understand over 3,500 miners were arrested, is that right?
My daughter was arrested, and she's a school teacher. She was arrested. She was arrested for bringing food up here to the striking miners.
The Soviets want to go home and set up their own independent union. To them, the most amazing thing about the UMW strike against Pittston is that the union must contend with replacement miners.
No, because when they went on strike, all the coal miners went on strike. Including the whole city actually went on strike.
For both the Russians and the American miners, it was a chance to compare notes. But the Russians say they don't think a union like this is possible in their country. For that, they blame their government and their own lack of leadership.
Because our official trade union is not about to give up its official position.
Как говорил мой товарищ Виктор, что нам легче украсть у вас трубку, чем найти своего лидера.
And as my comrade Victor said, it is easier to steal Richard Trumka away from you than to find amongst ourselves an equivalent leader.
The Soviets are scheduled to spend 3 days in Virginia's coal fields. In McClure, Virginia, Tracy Kingsley, News Center 6.
It was
and 2 others wounded. Today, state police were back at the site of Tuesday's violence looking for more clues they hope will help them solve the case. Authorities say among the pieces of evidence they've gathered are 30 weapons and as many as 35 shell casings, all of which will be turned over to lab technicians in Charleston for analysis.
We have a considerable amount of evidence we're trying to gain. We have a quantity of evidence now that we are going to take to Charleston to our lab, have analyzed, and then from that point we may take a different avenue of investigation than what we're doing now once we get the results on it.
Police say it may be several days, possibly weeks, before they turn up anything. So far, they have no suspects and have made no arrests. We went back to the coal fields today to try to learn more about what led to yesterday's so-called mini-war between union miners and local operators. And as News Center 6's Betsy Thompson tells us, it all really started a couple of years ago when one company took over all 8 mines in North Fork Hollow and began leasing each to individual operators.
Quiet today outside the Rolf 6A mine, in sharp contrast to yesterday when gunfire erupted between protesting union miners and non-union coal operators. Today, there were only a handful of local miners and women supporters.
We're here on behalf of the family and her children because it could be ours next, and we don't want this. We want it to stop. They were here for us, and we're here for them.
Tuesday's violence occurred in the presence of 50 or 60 pickets, many of them union sympathizers, whose numbers had increased here over the last week, showing their support of a cause being sought after by local miners for months. Attempts to collect hundreds of thousands of dollars in back wages and medical benefits, they say, is owed to them by the mine's operators. The shootout took place just hours before the union and mine operators were to reach agreement on settling the debt.
We've been here for 6 months. And then these sympathy workers come in, and then something like this happened.
It was just down the road from the entrance of this mine where Tuesday's shooting took place. A man was killed and 2 others wounded. And even though this whole dispute has been about money the union says the mine's operators owe its men, today they say no amount was worth the price of the life of even one miner.
All the men are saying, hey, you know, all the money, they could have it all. All the money in the world's not worth one life. Might be worth a weapon, but it's not worth a life.
In McDowell County, Betsy Thompson, News Center 6.
A McDowell County coal operator who directs a mine in the same hollow where yesterday's shootout occurred has lost a round with the state Supreme Court. Kenny Childers will have to face trial on charges he failed to post wage bonds. Childers asked the High Court to drop his case, but the request was denied. Childers' case will be tried under a new state law which opens the door for the criminal prosecution of coal operators who don't post wage bonds.
At a news conference, Soviets praised Gorbachev for starting the chain of events in Eastern Europe and said without him, they wouldn't be here now.
Because history called for such a man to undertake such a step, and that man was found in the persona of Gorbachev.
It's not every day Soviet citizens visit an American high school, and students here at Irvington High are a little awed and surprised by what they learned.
I love it. I just think they're so nice, and I didn't picture them to be like this, and I've just appreciated them coming to the U.S. I'd love to go to the Soviet Union now.
In just a few hours, stereotypes Soviets held about Americans and those held by Americans about Soviets died. As one Soviet put it, Americans are just simple, ordinary folks like ourselves.
Students at Irvington High School to talk about the coal strike in the Soviet Union and compare their situation to that of coal miners in Southwest Virginia. The Soviet miners have been on strike since July, but say, at least in this country, the UMW miners know where they stand in their strike because they deal with private enterprise, not with the government.
Our strikes were part of a general struggle against the entire government. The strikes here are totally different. You know what they're about. Therefore, our strikes did not have the same kind of end results as yours. Because when we raise issues that have to do with the strike-related issues, they touch upon matters of government policy.
The Soviets will be leaving Southwest Virginia tomorrow. They plan to tour an underground mine in the Richlands area before heading back to Russia January 29th.
Today, Tennessee's
between union and non-union miners in the North Fork Hollow. 2 other UMW pickets were injured as well. Today, striking Pittston miners expressed outrage over the incident and sympathy for the family of a union brother they say was a big supporter of their efforts.
From a Pittston perspective, Mr. McCoy had many times visited the particular picket line in down here and also Camp Solidarity, and those particular people feel very emotional about the situation and feel sorry for the family and want to lend it all the support they can.
Baker says at least 500 striking Pittston miners plan to pay their respects at the funeral tomorrow. State police are still investigating the shootout and so far have no clue as to who fired the first shot.
A delegation of Soviet miners visiting Southwest Virginia's coal fields rounded out their trip today with a tour of an Island Creek mine. When they returned from underground, they spoke of 2 major concerns, technology and safety. Tracy Kingsley reports.
They returned to the surface looking like any typical coal miners, but for these Soviets, this was not a typical coal mine. The biggest difference, they say, is technological.
They're much better, and they're much, the working conditions are much lighter and easier than in Soviet coal mines. The American coal miner works less hard manually.
Not only do the Americans have it easier, the Soviets, who shut down their country's industry last summer in a strike for better working conditions, say they also work more safely.
Safety conditions here are considerably better than they are in our country. You can say that the local union doesn't waste its time fighting for conditions that it requires.
They also say American miners are paid about 4 times better than Soviets. For that and the overall working conditions, they give the UMW a pat on the back.
The good working conditions that we've seen in the mines, I think, are that way because of the union's activities.
The Soviet miners say they've learned a great deal here about safety standards and technology in general. They hope to go home and form their own union and bring some of those standards to their country. In Buchanan County, Virginia, Tracy Kingsley, News Center 6.
New Beckley and the United Mine Workers are getting back to the bargaining table next week to make up for last week's missed meeting. Company attorney Forrest Rolls was tied up in another court case last Thursday and didn't ask for a recess to attend negotiations. Union officials say they spent $2,500 getting all their players to Charleston for the talks, so they've asked the National Labor Relations Board to charge them with contempt and make them pay. But they got word today that that probably won't happen.
I think they were in contempt of the judge's order, just to be perfectly honest, but it was an agreed upon date and time instead of an ordered date and time, so that may make a big difference.
Both sides.
One of their own. 42-year-old John McCoy was struck down Tuesday, caught in the crossfire during this week's shootout between union pickets and non-union coal operators. As News Center 6's Betsy Thompson reports, miners and their families put aside the ongoing police investigation to mourn the loss of a union brother.
As many as 300 United Mine Workers crowded into the tiny funeral home in Welch as hundreds more spilled onto the parking lot outside.
The outpouring that's here today is a dramatic example of how much everyone feels connected to John and his commitment to his family and to the union and to justice for workers who've had a bad deal. He paid his life for it.
Clad in union camouflage, they came from as many as 5 states, as far away as Ohio, Pennsylvania, and the nation's capital.
It won't be much, but it'll be something to help.
Some took up a collection for the family. Others passed out black armbands, all doing what they know McCoy would do and did for them.
Sort of like the same reason John was protesting for the people's wages in their worth. Nobody asked him to go, and nobody asked these people to come. They came in support of a union brother who died for a cause of people's rights, and it shows union.
I think it's an inspiration for us. John certainly is. He's been down in Southwest Virginia many times to Camp Solidarity supporting the Pittston strikers, and somebody took him out, and it's a tragedy.
Even as John McCoy was being laid to rest, it was evident this matter has not been put to rest, that somehow, for them, his death will not be in vain, but serve to strengthen the union's solidarity.
He's not going to die in vain. We'll be there tomorrow. We're going to be there tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday, next week from now until we get our monies. But kill 2 more, we're going to still be there.
In McDowell County, Betsy Thompson, News Center 6.
So far, police have still made no arrests as their investigation continues into which side actually triggered Tuesday's shooting.
Sherry, the man accused of paying to rape a Wyoming County teenage girl is
County. A band of coal truck drivers, apparently hired by the non-union Rum Creek company, plowed its way through a union roadblock that's kept the truckers at bay since August. Once the coal trucks cut a clear path through the barricade of debris, picketing miners drove their cars into the road. Those 2, though, were forced out of the way. 2 women were hurt in the incident. Witnesses say the blockade and plowing through happened a half-dozen times today. State police say they arrested 2 of the truck drivers for destruction of property. Both were released on bond. Rum Creek trucks haven't moved any coal in or out of that prep plant since the union protests began last summer. Lack of progress in a 2-month-old strike at a coal company just across the Virginia border in Kentucky may be leading the participants to form a union. Independent truckers have been hauling coal for the Hawkeye Coal Corporation. They've been striking over long hours and a promised pay increase that never came. And now a United Mine Workers spokesman says the group of 60 truckers are considering forming a union.
Their way across an illegal union barricaded bridge. Push has definitely come to shove in Logan County.
You think we ain't prepared to go to jail? We're prepared to die.
The trucks made it through just one time this morning. Shortly before noon, a couple on each side, both union and company, were arrested and hauled away. But that's just the latest new wrinkle in this very high-tension game of cat and mouse. A game that's got a lot of people wondering just how long it's going to take before someone pays with his life. 1:45, the truckers are out of jail. It's round 2. That yellow Cherokee belongs to the man they call Preacher.
Probably do $2,000 to $4,000 damage to it.
They already have.
They already done that, so all I do is get another one. It's a sacrifice. You have to pay. I believe in what I'm doing.
I can't move those vehicles out of the road, nor can I arrest those truck drivers for knocking them out of the road.
Troopers openly admit they're frustrated, but under current law, there's not much they can do about it, like it or not. And there'll be more. The cops are in the middle, the union and the company hate each other, and no one's about to budge. As we pulled out, the Preacher triumphantly returned his ripped and battered Cherokee for the next round.
All in all, 6 arrests today.
Strike against Raleigh County's New Beckley Coal began. During the past year, violence has rocked the community in and around the mine, and today was no exception. This time, a bomb scare at the local 1895 Union Hall. A miner who lived close by says he found explosives on a hill in back of the Union Hall. An alcohol, tobacco, and firearms official on the scene today said 5 to 6 pounds of explosives were confiscated.
It could be an aborted attempt by management or some of their hired scabs to do some mischief to our local Union Hall. And this just might have been one of those attempts to foul up the negotiations, and they just didn't have time to carry it out.
Authorities also picked up some blasting caps and other devices used for making bombs. An investigation continues tonight.
Despite the air of violence in Glen Daniel, it was relatively peaceful in Charleston, where a bargaining session got underway. The union in New Beckley were ordered to the table by U.S. District Judge Elizabeth Hallinan, but 2 weeks ago, a scheduled meeting fell through. Both sides talked for 2 hours this morning, but walked away uncertain exactly what it was they were bargaining over. News Center 6's Tracy Kingsley has more. Since New Beckley President Jay Sassell announced plans to shut down the Glen Daniel mine, he and attorney Forrest Rolls have said the only bargaining would be over the terms of the closing, issues such as severance pay. Union members have argued otherwise, and today that question is still unclear.
The union may want to have a statement, and unfortunately I don't want to make any other statement at this time.
You won't even say whether or not this is affects bargaining?
No, I don't want to get into any semantics or euphemisms. I just want to leave it as it is for now.
So
I thank you for coming.
You're willing to still consider their further proposals?
Well, look, talk to the union, okay?
We've made certain proposals. Some of those proposals the company was not prepared for. We've submitted to them a formal request for information so both sides can intelligently discuss the issues, and then we'll decide where we stand, whether it affects bargaining or buyouts or whatever.
A pleasant surprise, though, for union negotiators, the fact that Sassell actually sat at the table. Today was the first bargaining session in about 5 months, although there have been numerous others in the past. Today was the first day a company official has shown up, other than an attorney. Union members say that does make a difference, although it may not do any good.
Didn't make a whole lot of progress for us having him there, but it was good to have the man there. At least we could talk to the people that owned the place. It could make a decision. And I think his decision is to sell or seal.
Another bargaining session is scheduled for tomorrow. In Charleston, Tracy Kingsley, News Center 6.
And tensions in Logan County aren't easing a bit. For the second straight day, non-union coal truck drivers rammed through UMW barricades in Rum Creek Hollow. It's brute force against union solidarity. And as News Center 6's Bill Huffman reports, no one is winning.
It's just after dawn up Rum Creek Hollow. Union picketers staking their claim. Meanwhile, less than a stone's throw away, West Virginia State Police are engaging in small talk. Except for that, all is quiet, but just for a few hours. You have to wonder what the rest of America would say if they knew about this or this. Both sides are now playing, but this is no game.
Enough, God. these scabs. We don't need to start on y'all.
Who is it?
What's the camera broke?
Hey.
Get it out of here. Hey,
No, come on.
you don't have no business filming us.
I understand.
Union supporters didn't want us to take pictures of their friends barricading the bridge in direct defiance of a federal court order. Today, 2 union men were arrested for ignoring those orders.
It's a shocking commentary on what's happening here. We were told by one union official that they intended to sacrifice these vehicles and to have them wrecked. And we saw firsthand that their intention was carried through.
And 4 men from Rum Creek Coal were hauled away too. 3 charged with destruction of property, the other with attempted murder. But the company men were back out on the street on bond in less than 2 hours and right back at it. Chances are they'll all be back tomorrow. In Logan County,
An already dangerously tense situation there has escalated again. For the 3rd day in a row, non-union drivers were met by angry miners who had illegally barricaded the entrance to the preparation plant there. To add to the unrest, the man strikers call Scab 1 was called in to blowtorch a steel cable blocking the road. Then union supporters formed a human blockade, but the trucks continued to plow on through. Marshals stepped in, arrested 3 miners, 2 for striking federal officers, while more than a dozen state troopers, prohibited from intervening, watched from a distance. One woman claimed she was beaten by one of the marshals and was treated and released at Logan General Hospital.
Conditions between New Beckley Coal and the United Mine Workers seem to be improving. A 2nd day of talks started this afternoon in Charleston. UMW officials were encouraged yesterday when company president Jay Sisal showed up at the bargaining table, but Sisal insists the only thing they have to talk about is the terms of closing the mine. Union representatives hope that something can be worked out at the bargaining table to keep the mine operating. A Boone County man has become West Virginia's first mine fatality of the year. 45-year-old Leonard Brown, an electrician with Tony's Branch Coal Company, was killed when an underground shuttle car pinned him against a mine floor. Officials say 5 people have died so far this year in mine accidents.
Coal mining laws. The move also settles a decade-old lawsuit filed by environmental groups that claim the laws were not being enforced. News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell has the details.
Those who operate coal mines below or above the ground with mine law violations in their closets have been easier to track since a computer system was established in 1987. But the system didn't include all the federal data available or allow states to share information. That's all changing.
We're not creating any new data, but we're creating the availability of that data for the enforcement of preventing violators of the Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act to receive new permits or to simply change their name and go under another handle, so to speak.
The system tracks mine permit applicants for outstanding previous violations or unpaid reclamation fees. It can result in blocked permits, and many have been blocked in Virginia since the computer went to work.
Out of 208 applications, the system has shown that there were blocks needed on 85 of those.
Of the 85 blocked over the last 2.5 years, 25 to date remain in question. Although the system is for new permits, the Interior Secretary is now requiring a review of all mine permits in force. In Big Stone Gap, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5.
Court date has finally been set to deal with those strike-related union fines. A Russell County judge says lawyers for both the company and the union are anxious to have those fines dropped so miners can get back to work. If that happens next week, it will clear the way for the rank and file to see the terms of the tentative contract and vote on it. After that, it should be just a matter of days until the 10-month-long strike will officially be over, putting nearly 2,000 workers in 3 states back underground. But there is still one more stumbling block in the way. Nearly $1 million in federally levied fines against the union have not yet been discussed in court.
100 years ago today, the United Mine Workers was born. It's been a century mixed with setback and victory, of peacefulness and violence as the union's fight for miners' rights has struggled onward. The latest struggle is in Logan County, up the Rum Creek Hollow. Violence between non-union and union supporters has erupted there the past 3 days. But today, there was peace on the picket line. However, News Center 6's Julita Albright reports that may not last long.
When union picketers heard the rumble of coal trucks today, they scattered, retreated, leaving the road clear in front of Rum Creek Mine. No human chain, no battered pickup trucks, no discarded stoves or washers lining the entrance, nothing blocking the road.
We're going to do different stuff. We've got to do different what we've done and not get none of our people hurt.
They don't want any confrontation today, and neither do we. And we're thankful that they're responding the way they are.
A strike coordinator said the heat had been turned up in this conflict, and after police carted off 3 picketers, 2 for assaulting an officer, it was time to cool down.
You know, when tensions get high, you know, some people will have the tendency to get out of line. I said, and it's my job to make sure these people stay in line and try to meet the judge's orders.
So today it's quiet, tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow's another day.
The quiet after 3 days of a violent storm came as a surprise. This had looked like a fight to the death.
It's a good possibility. If you want to see somebody get killed here, let them sit in front of one of them trucks over there.
Another reason they're keeping the roads clear is they say police used excessive force when they were making arrests yesterday.
When you make an arrest, you only use the reasonable force that's necessary to consummate that arrest. And our people did not use any excessive force that I'm aware of.
To these miners, celebrating the last century as a union wasn't foremost in their minds. No, it was planning a strategy for the next day. In Logan County, Toledo Albright, News Center 6.
And efforts are continuing to get New Beckley miners back to work, but it's not likely we'll hear how progress is moving along. Both the union and the company have issued a news blackout on the latest round of talks, which began on Monday. A UMW spokesman did say the bargaining will resume next week. A long-absent contract apparently isn't the only thing being discussed by the two sides. The company claims it
brings fines against the United Mine Workers Union. That hearing could help clear the way for a final settlement in the coal strike. The Mine Workers Union still faces more than $63 million in fines that have accumulated during the 9-month-old strike. Just 3 weeks ago, the Pittston Coal Group and the UMW announced that they had reached a tentative agreement to end the strike. But that agreement hinged on a number of things, including the union settling its legal problems. Judge McLaughlin fined the union for illegal strike activities, including violations of an injunction that limited picketing and prohibited the union from disrupting Pittston operations. January 31st, the coal group and the union will meet with the judge in an effort to have the remaining fines against the union dismissed. That would clear the way for a union vote on ratification of the proposed contract. The strike has idled 1,700 miners in Virginia, West Virginia, and Kentucky. Hundreds of union miners gathered in West Virginia today to put pressure on non-union workers to get out of a coal preparation plant. Sheila Gray tells us more about the march.
The crowd of United Mine Workers looked like one huge, writhing mass of camouflage as men marched from the mouth of Rum Creek Hollow to the DHU prep plant.
That's all that we intend to do on any of these situations is to peacefully demonstrate and show that we're not going away, that the UMW is here to stay.
Give you a good, strong feeling to see you have that many backers, supporters, that the men know what we're fighting for.
Miners heckled U.S. Marshals as they drove into the hollow behind the crowd. State troopers stood by to make sure there was no trouble, and there reportedly was not.
Nothing is occurring. As you know, it hasn't occurred this morning. Don't look for anything to occur.
There was no movement from the DHU plant. Miners stayed long enough to make sure no trucks ran out of the hollow, and then they dispersed and met again at Camp Solidarity. But that doesn't mean it's over.
We've been here for 5 months, so we'll be here for a while longer, looks like.
Sheila Gray, WSA.
But today, hundreds more joined the union protest. News Center 6's Betsy Thompson has more.
A parade of union solidarity, the kind reserved for war-weary veterans after victory. On this battlefield, the coalfields of Logan County, the war appears far from over. But on this day, there would be one small triumph, won by the commanding presence of 700-plus union miners.
They think that we're going to go in and lock our doors and pull our window shades down. They're crazy. We're not going to do that. Can't do that.
Mr. Holbrook, he had the ball, and evidently he didn't want to play today.
And if it's true their strength in numbers, union members managed to flex their muscles in an intimidating show of force, intimidating enough to keep Rum Creek coal truck drivers from crossing their picket line or this bridge today.
Oh, yeah, it worked. I mean, whenever you can pack people into Logan County like was packed in Rum Creek up there today, you know, people took up and they took notice. Yeah, we accomplished to do what we did.
UMWA!
Nearly all the miners soon retreated to Camp Solidarity in nearby Logan, while only a handful of pickets manned the plant's entrance. Earlier in the week, there were no winners in clashes between union pickets and non-union coal trucks after arrests were made on both sides of the picket line. So the emphasis today was on vocals and visibility, not violence.
Things did get out of hand there, but hopefully, you know, that we kept the violence down, and hopefully it's not going to happen again.
But whatever the strategy and at whatever the cost, the war rages on.
Oh, yes. I'm here.